Well, hello everybody. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining us on this very special hour with John Whitberg. We have a very amazing show here today, and thank you all for joining us. So, hopefully, I'm rendering a video right now for Mrs. Danny Henderson. So hopefully, there's not going to be any noise in the background, but uh, yeah, I can't help that, guys. But anyway, let's continue on with our featured guest of honor, John, who was part of the Montauk program and then was later transferred into Project Looking Glass. And we're going to go into all these different facets of his experiences. And by the way, visit my website at supersoldiertalk.com. There is a great interview that Daniel Sala put together with John. It's I don't know if I'll be able to top that interview, but I will do my best. So yeah, okay. So John served in the secret space program under different alter names. John's alter was sent to Vega Prime, and then later in Solar Warden. His other alter, Heinrich, is a German diplomatic officer who was loaned out to the Deep Space Fleet Space Navy, which is another name for the JDFC, the Joint Defense Force Command. During his time, he was tasked with setting up new trade agreements, settling disputes, and setting up colonies within the breakaway. Heinrich was stationed on the USS Hoechkler, which is 6 miles long. His second alter, Jared, is an archaeologist in the ICC, and John believes he is still alive. Another alter of his, Adam, served in Solar Warden, which later split into Radiant Guardian. Adam also served on the Europa. Served on planet Europa. Sorry, planet Europa. The moon. Sorry, New Nuremberg on the moon Titan, Victoria colony on Mars, and also on the moon of Ganymede. Adam served as an immigration officer for our solar system. Today, John will be talking more about this and is Alex Alter, who was stationed at Montauk in the 1960s and then transferred to Project Looking Glass in the mid-70s. So, yeah, maybe I got a little tidbit on here about Planet Centurion, where he met Paul Serne, who was the head of Monarch. John?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Wow, this is quite a list on your bio. How many years do you think you actually served out there?
I did the math once. It's somewhere roughly like close to 300 years.
Wow. So I guess we can joke about it. So I'm assuming your pension fund must have millions of dollars in it, but the reality of the situation is you were pretty much utilized as a slave, I guess.
Very, very much so, yes.
Yeah, in their opinion, they considered it a privilege to work for them for 300 years. So that's why they think they don't need to pay you or pay us for others.
I guess so.
Okay. All right. Well, would you like to add anything else to that bio that I might have missed?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, let's go back to your early Montauk experiences. So how does this, how would you actually start this story here that you went through?
Well, that is a difficult question to answer because from that very early phase, a lot of the memories are very fragmented, but one of the possible narratives I've put together, and the one that makes the most sense to me, is that I'm actually someone named Alexander Bronsley who was born in the 1950s, and that I'm currently displaced in time, and that he was one of the first kids taken to Montauk in the early 60s. And so
Well, how did you get from the modern era, the current present, back to the 1960s? Or is this your soul has been fragmented in another live stream? How does this work?
From what I can tell, I was, like I said, I was born in the 50s, so I was a kid in the 60s, and I was taken there from what I can recall, I was taken there in a black van from um
Bless you.
sorry. From I believe I was literally snatched from outside my home, and that um my family, who is also not my biological family, that I was with at the time, that's a whole other story, but the family I was with at the time uh, had their minds wiped, and it was as if I had never existed. Um, and so then I have a pretty distinctive memory of arriving at Camp Hero, being led. Well, first there was the processing, as they called it, in the radio tower, where we had our names taken. We were stripped down, hosed off, and shaved.
How old were you, John, at this particular point?
I was
You-
7.
Okay. And what was the state of your mind? Were you like asking for your parents? Do you remember,
I
or
was. I was, and the funny thing is, I still can't even remember their names, but I was asking for them, and I was terrified. Like, I had no idea what was happening to me. Um, Given the era, I probably kind of thought I'd been kidnapped by the Soviets or something. But, and I
well,
have,
John, why do you think they chose you at this point?
I believe because I believe I was always destined to be taken for this, that I am actually a hybrid that was created in a lab. Um, and
Is there
that,
a connection with your blood type, maybe,
yes, there
or
is
oh,
with I'm AB negative blood typed, which is the rarest blood type, by the way. There's only a couple million of us on the entire planet. And from what I've been told is that through secret CIA research, they've discovered that AB negative people have the highest amount of Anunnaki DNA of all humans. So we have uh, what Max Spears referred to as Blood Group B, what James Casbolt referred to as Blood Prime, what Penny Bradley refers to as the metagene, and so on. Like,
and there's also a connection with you actually getting your memories back because of your blood type. Because I've been trying to figure out the pattern. Why is it Tony has full recall? We have Jean Charles Moyen, even Alana Denon, and then we got so many others. So why is it that you think that you're having your recalls and some of the other people are struggling? What do you think it is?
I believe that's also blood type related, that this technology for mind wiping was made for normal humans, not for AB negatives. So it just doesn't work as well.
I understand. Okay. All right. So continue on. You're being debriefed, I guess, or at Montauk. What's
We,
the next step?
we weren't debriefed for a while. We were hosed off, shaved down, and put into white pajamas, and then led into the infamous cage room. And I almost never have the audio portion of my memories, but for this particular one I do. There was this kid, he couldn't have been older than 14 or 15, who let us in there, and he said, "Welcome to Camp Hero. I hope you like it here, because the only way out is through the chimney."
What? That's
Means like
crazy.
being
Wow.
that means like being cremated, basically.
Yeah.
It means you're not getting out. So
Wow. And so, wow, so you're in a cage.
It-
Were there other kids there in
oh
cages
yeah.
too?
Oh, tons of them. Yeah. It averaged at about 3 kids per cage.
Uh, and do you remember? Uh, I guess to get to nitty gritty details, did they give you clothing? Did they take that
Yeah.
away? Okay.
Yes, that we had white pajamas.
And what kind of? I mean, what was the food like at the mess hall?
Wasn't much. It was like powdered eggs and like instant oatmeal and things like that. Uh,
Okay. All right. So can you explain what it is they told you they wanted you to do for them?
well, very little, honestly. You kind of just learned what you were supposed to do because you got beaten if you weren't doing it right. Um, it the first stage was putting us through the chair, which most of us died. I died, but they I didn't die as quickly as some of the other kids, so they figured I did have some worth, so they kept me around.
John,
And yes, of
can you please explain to people what is this
oh,
chair and why did they die in it?
course, sorry. The chair was what people often refer to as a trip seat. It We were told that they had found it in ruins in Egypt. I've heard other people say that it actually came from the Roswell crash. I don't know. I wasn't there when they got it, but it's essentially an interdimensional and interstellar and intertime navigation chair. And most humans are incapable of using it. It overwhelms your psyche because you do inevitably connect to it on a psychic level, but for most people it literally fries you from the inside out because the energy of it is so intense. Um, and there were a few people but there were some humans they found who could operate it, and we actually called them the few, because I mean, for obvious reasons.
All right. And can you describe a little bit what this chair actually looks like and how is it actually used?
Looks m- more or less like a dentist's chair. It doesn't lean back quite that far. Um, but it also has wires coming off the back from it that connect to the portal, which is pretty much just a big metal arch. Uh, and what it the the way it works is somehow or other the person operating it will be given coordinates for where they want the portal to open, and then they do it. I don't know the intricacies of how the technology works. I was never an operator, so it's not my area. But
Was there any mirrors in front of the chair?
yes, there were. Uh,
Okay.
you were supposed to visualize also the location, and like it would be projected onto the mirror, and then the portal would open. Again, I don't know how all this works, and I don't know how they figured all this out, but
Well, John, can you explain why some of the children died in the chair, and what when you went in the chair, how come I guess I say how come you didn't die, but more like can you please explain what happened when you how did the chair treat you differently?
I opened the portal a crack, but then I did die. But even being able to open it a crack is pretty exceptional. So they did keep me around, and it was what I remember it feeling like was my entire body vibrating, like having an extreme seizure, like an extreme seizure, and it was very painful. And I visualized the location and the portal for a few seconds, and then I guess that's when I died, and I woke up in the regeneration tank.
Wow. So this was back in the 1960s. They had regen technology.
Yeah, that was one of the first technologies that um, was gotten as part of the not the Greada Treaty, the one with the treaty with the Mantids. There is a name for it that I can never remember, but
Oh, understood. All right. Well, let's discuss. Maybe could you tell us how many children do you think went through Montauk, and where did they actually find most of these participants? I don't know. I use that word lightly, more like subjects.
in total, the number of kids who went through has um, around 2 million and counting, because it's an ongoing project. Um, where they got them. Well, they started getting them from uh, bloodline families, Illuminati bloodline families, and from government hybrids such as myself. And then when they kind of started running thin on those, they started literally just randomly abducting kids off the street in places for a while.
John, was it you that were talking about the motorcycle gangs they hired to kidnap kids?
No, I
Oh,
don't.
okay,
I don't personally remember that.
okay, all right, all right. And what percentage of the kids do you think either died or went missing of those 2 million?
I would be shocked if it's anything less than 40%.
And as far as when we describe when kids go missing through the Montauk project, could you describe what does that actually entail? Where are these kids actually going?
Well, they would be tested after they died in the chair. They would be tested further to see if they could do anything else, and if they couldn't, um, then they would be. A lot of them were incinerated, and a lot of them were fed to this group of Draco that lived on the base in what was called the feeding room.
Wow, wow. And I actually put on my website the remote viewing the Montauk facility where we talk about one of these feeding rooms where the Draco are being kept. And what's actually kind of curious is that some of these Draco were human Draco hybrids that were genetically modified after they were born and converted into Draco somehow. But wow. And so, can you explain? So we know, okay, we know the Draco involved. The Mantis have a connection, or at least helped participate by providing resources. And we also have different groups such as the Tall Whites that you've talked about that were allegedly even in charge of this whole project. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
I don't know that they were in charge of Montauk. They were in charge of Project Looking Glass completely and totally. Um, but there were tall whites on staff at Camp Hero. There were a couple of different kinds of grays. There were Betelgeisian grays, and there was at least one Zeta there, and we had a lot of Zeta hybrids. but I only remember one pure Zeta. Trying to think what else, what other species. There was another reptilian species there that I still don't know the identity of. I don't know what they call themselves, but they're around 7 feet tall. They're black, scales, iridescent. They're actually really pretty up close. And they have a tail with spikes on it, like a stegosaurus.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. We'll just look at this picture real quick. Hopefully, yeah. Okay, let me zoom in. Reichian device used for application of energy fields during the process, which keeps the abductee in a pre-orgasmic state, allowing mind control and programming. Also used for ovum sperm extraction, used for conditioning, and something about programming for humans, including memory washing. Does any of that look familiar to you, John?
Yeah.
And did you see one of those things at Montauk, or is this something else?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and did you see these little beans here from
Yes.
Sirius?
Oh, is
Yeah.
that where they're from? Yeah, I saw them there.
Okay, here's another one of the mind machine used by the Syrians to create artificial realities in the mind of the human abductee. Okay, the secondary process to make the abductee think they are dreaming, so they will relax and let their mind go, allowing alien control. So does that look familiar to you as well?
I don't think so.
Okay, so this may be a different program. Okay. All right, well, let's just go ahead and move on. So, all right, so at this point, we established that you were at Montauk. You're opening up portals. What are some of the places they wanted you to go to?
Oh boy. Well, in those early days, there was a lot of off-world stuff. There was a lot of stuff in Egypt, like a lot of stuff. They would typically scan each kid. They had a Draco who this was literally his job. His name was Ezekiel. He was a black Draco, and he would do a psychic scan of everyone to find out what your past lives were. And oftentimes that's where they would send you, was places where you had past lives.
All right, so you would go back in time to meet your doppelganger, I guess?
No, not you wouldn't necessarily go meet yourself, but you would just go to the places, the civilizations they had lived in.
And what was the goal? What were they trying to accomplish with this?
They were primarily manipulating the timeline to suit their own agenda, and they were also looking for ancient technology.
Wow. So, can you describe? Do you know which humans were benefiting? Which bloodline families or corporations were benefiting from this program?
I know that there was heavy involvement from the Rothschilds, from many military families, elite military families from around the world, particularly the US, UK, Argentine intelligence, interestingly. And sorry, what was the question?
Well, more specifically, I wanted you to explain about how these families would use this program to make investments to help benefit their bloodlines. And that's what it was. Yeah. What can you tell us about that?
They were essentially going back and eliminating every person or thing in history that was a challenge to their power. And they would also go into the future and do that so that they would always be powerful.
Was that when you also went back to Florence, Italy, through Montauk, or was this Looking Glass?
That was Looking Glass.
Okay. So overall, do you feel like, do you want to spend more time talking about Montauk and what you went there, or do you want to just go continue into the Looking Glass aspect? What would you like to do?
I don't know. Do you want to talk about Melanie?
Okay. So who is that?
Melanie is my trauma twin, or was. She was Alex's trauma twin. She's not. It's a sensitive issue, but essentially, trauma twinning is where they take two really powerful kids and they create a bond between them using extreme trauma. In our case, it was forcing me to watch her get eaten. And then she got regenerated, and it was like it's really difficult to talk about, but it worked, and we were a successful trauma twinning. And they do that partly because if you take two really powerful kids who are incredibly loyal to each other, then they'll basically do anything to save the other one and keep the mission going. And they also do it for breeding purposes a lot of the time. They oftentimes want you to have children with your trauma twin so that they'll just have basically another free asset.
So did that actually happen? You eventually they forced you to have kids?
No, we had a kid by our own choice later at Area 51. I was actually quite insubordinate, so they eventually separated us by sending me to Area 51. I think it was in late 73 to early 74 that they sent me to Area 51 because I pulled a gun on. Actually, it was on Preston. And so they separated us. Eventually, she also managed to get transferred to Area 51, and then we had a kid by our own choice, kind of. It's
Wow. Well, let's, before we get to the Area 51 aspect, let's just finish up quickly through the Montauk stuff, because I wanted you to talk a little bit about some of the people you might have seen at Montauk. For instance, do you think did you ever see any, say, paperclip Nazis, or somebody like maybe Joseph Mengele or Michael Aquino? What do you think?
I didn't see Mengele or Aquino. I saw plenty of other people. I saw why am I drawing a blank on the name? Well, I saw many of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from various presidencies because, of course, it's all laid out ahead anyway, who's going to be what. And saw.
Okay.
I saw some celebrities. I saw Judy Garland. I saw Sharon Tate. I saw who's the guy who wrote the Satanic Bible? Anton LaVey. I saw him.
And they were actually working for Montauk, or you saw them through Montauk?
They were working there. Well, they were also victims. Most of them. The Joint Chiefs were not victims, but they weren't actively perpetrators either. They engaged with the program because they kind of didn't have a choice, but they didn't particularly like what we were doing. But the celebrities I saw were all mind-controlled victims.
Wow. And is that where you were also writing music, lyrics for different music programs, or was that later on, or both?
Yes, yes. Well, a lot of my alters have written music. A fair amount of it was at Montauk. Um, and
Do you remember the names of some of the songs you might have written at Montauk?
I do, yes.
Like what?
Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. Alex wrote that. There's a song, it's not well known at all, but it's called Exclusively for Me, that was written at Camp Hero, actually by a different alter of mine, Kyle, who I'm sure we'll get to eventually, but uh, there
Yeah.
was a song that I knew about the writing of. I didn't write it myself, but Hallelujah. Um, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. That song?
Yeah. Careful, so YouTube
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
delete it for copyright. It's kind of
yeah.
funny. Since you were the original author, you should own, or at least have title to the copyright. But
I didn't. No, I'm not the original author. I don't want to leave that impression. Janis Joplin was the original author, and she wrote it after the death of her divine counterpart. Um, and I
do you? You mentioned earlier that you were there as Alex, and then you said Kyle. What is this Kyle? Who is that?
Kyle is a different alter. He was taken there. He was in this body that I'm currently in. He was not anyone born in the 50s. He was me, and he was taken there, portaled back in time from 2014 to 1983. Um, and he was there, so I was 13 at the time, and that was not very long before the junior incident, which I was not there for. By the way, I was actually on a mission in Tibet, which is a whole story in and of itself. But
And when you said junior, you mean Bush Junior?
no, the junior, the Montauk monster.
Oh, oh, okay. Because okay, I see. Okay, so you were there when that happened.
No, I was on a mission in Tibet when that incident occurred, but I was a part of the project at that time. Um, but I was off on a mission when the actual incident occurred, and came back, and place was a shambles. They were cleaning up pools of blood. It was not a pretty sight. Um,
So that was your job to help clean up the mess.
Pretty much, yeah. And
How many people did they kill? Did Junior kill? Oh, what percent? Do you think?
gosh, I most of the adults, because most of the adults were active perpetrators of the abuse. Um, and some of them escaped. Some of them, somehow, I still don't know how, some of them convinced him not to kill them and to let them go, but most of the adults were killed.
Wow.
And yeah.
And someone was asking, what were you doing in Tibet at the prior to this taking place?
Oh, that's an interesting story, actually. They sent me back in time to be a part of this monastery in Tibet in around the 1400s, that It had ancient technology under it. The monastery was built on top of an ancient site, deep within this mountain. And they sent me back in time to be a part of it. Um, and so basically, I just was this white kid who basically just walked up to their doorstep, and the monks were really psychic. They knew immediately who and what I was, that I was a time traveler, and that I was there pretty much to steal from a sacred site, but they thought that they could fix me. So they didn't kill me right on the spot. They took me in and they made me become one of them. Uh, I did still steal this technology in the end, but they gave me some perspective about what I was actually doing.
They tell you that you were part of a project in the future.
Yeah, they told me.
And were your memories when they sent you on this mission? Did they wipe your memories of what you were what of your origins? Like you showed up and you didn't even know.
No, they didn't. I knew. Well, I knew what I was there for, and I knew why. But I remember this one monk. Um, Several of them led me in, and then this very elderly monk came and he sat next to me or across from me on the floor, and he said, "Look into my eyes," telepathically, because of course they didn't speak English. I didn't speak Tibetan, but he was fully telepathic, and I looked into his eyes, and he said, "You come from a later point in our cycle. You're here to steal from our people, from a sacred site, no less, but you're also a victim, and you don't want to be a disgrace to your species. So we're going to take you in."
Oh wow!
Yeah,
And so um, I guess they weren't successful on flipping you. It looks like at
no,
the end. Okay.
no.
Um, all right. And if you refused, maybe let's just say you accepted their spirituality and didn't want to go back to the future and wanted to stay with them, would Montauk just allow you to just? Do you think they would have left you alone and just say, okay, well, we just give up on him?
Hell no.
So you really had no choice. You had to steal it. Otherwise, they would have. What would they have done to you?
They would have taken me, mind wiped me, and sent me on another mission. And they would have probably installed some fresh programming to overcome whatever new things I had learned. Um, and then they would have just sent someone else back to do it, and they would have kept doing it until someone finally did steal the technology. So,
Can you describe what this technology was that they were looking for?
not really. I know it was in a very ornate, very beautiful red wooden box, and it had. There were also scrolls in the cache with it. That the scrolls had coordinates to something, um, to some, I don't know, a planet or a dimension. I don't know.
Okay. And I guess you were saying they're always looking for a lot of scrolls.
Oh yes, they were always looking for scrolls because that's where.
Hmm. Where do you think all this stolen technology and um, historical relics are? Where do you think they're stored now? Is it like in the movie Indiana Jones, where you see a giant warehouse that's all boxed up, government warehouse? Maybe. What do you think?
It's something kind of like that, yeah. I mean, a lot of it's in use, but whatever is not in use, yeah, it is in underground warehouses.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
All right. So let's go forward here. Junior um, destroyed the facility, and I guess Junior they shut down the machinery. And eventually, Junior dematerialized. I guess he had to
I
go away.
guess, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you come in, you clean up. What is the next thing in your process here? What happens after that?
Well, first, we partied quite a lot because all the people who had been torturing us were dead or gone. And then we actually had a big meeting of, okay, what do we do now? And we decided, okay, the people who really just don't want to be here anymore, we're going to send them home to wherever they belong. But the rest of us are going to stay, and we're going to try and fix as much as possible all of the things that we did in the past. We're going to try and recorrect the timeline, which is an ongoing process, and that's why the project is still up and running.
So at this point, you're doing more missions, but this time you're trying to undo the bad that they did, I guess.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So what do you recall missions where can you give us an example of one of these missions that where they try to fix things?
Yes. I can remember one where we were actually fighting our past selves from the first time we had done this. But we went back to this same point in time again, and it was somewhere in medieval Germany or Switzerland or somewhere like that. And there was near this village, there was a battle with Draco. There was a human versus Draco battle that happened, and in the original timeline, we had gone there and we were fighting against the Draco, but then when we corrected it, we went there and we were fighting actually alongside them. So, I'm guessing these were a morally better faction if we were assisting them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that just shows for people out there, just because there are certain Draco, I guess you would call these particular Draco the Thuban Draco, not all of them are going to be like this. These particular beings are probably, their souls are probably some like the third level from hell or something. They're not, yeah, I don't even know why Source Creator even allow them to exist at this point, but whatever. All right. Can you explain? Do you have any memories of going back to the Merovingian kings of I guess would be what 900s or 1000 and anything like
No,
that? Okay.
not specifically. I remember a lot of medieval stuff, but I don't know where exactly it is or who exactly it was with, because that's names are really difficult for me, and like I said, I almost never have the audio of memories, so I can hardly ever tell what language we were speaking even.
So can you explain a little bit about? So they were send these people back in time. Did they, as far as their training is concerned, were they sent on like assassination missions or were
Oh,
they
oh
or
yes.
what would they also train for like sexual programming too?
Oh yeah.
Service. Okay, and these were kids that were doing.
Yes, they were kids. They were, yeah. Um,
And
between the
the
age.
children would go out and actually kill people,
Oh yeah, all the time,
and you were forced to do that too.
many times.
What are some of the ways that you typically would do it? They forced you to do it.
We were taught that the easiest and most efficient way to kill a human was either a shot between the eyes or a stab through the neck. And
you would actually bring guns back with you, modern weapons?
sometimes it depended on how much risk there was of getting caught and arrested and whatnot. If there was a high risk of that, then no, because you didn't want to create a paradox where, like, if you were in the 1300s and suddenly they had a Beretta M9, that would be like kind of a mess. But
Well, there have been like reports of where they open up a cave and they find like petrified modern day watches or something like that. So, so do you think some things were actually created these and anomalies like that back? Do you think?
I I don't doubt it at all. Yeah.
Do you remember anything specifically that got left back in time that created a problem?
I remember one time someone took a laptop back uh, into the Victorian era, and she didn't bring it back, and she got in a lot of trouble for that. But when we went back to the location where she left it, it was gone. So it was like, well, great. Hope you didn't fuck everything up, lady.
Oh my God. Well, all right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so at what point did you discontinue your service with Montauk? I mean, how did they retire you?
Kyle, my alter Kyle is still there. Alex got transferred as punishment in 73 or 74. After, like I said, after he pulled a gun on Preston. Actually did that several times. And so he was demoted severely, stripped of his weapons, and sent alone to Area 51 as punishment.
Wow, wow. And why would you even want to do that to Preston? I mean, wasn't he like in charge of the project and programming all you kids?
Yeah,
Us
that's
kids, because I was there too, but I don't remember as much as John. Go ahead.
he. Yeah, he was there, and he was in charge of programming, and he was possibly the most evil being I have ever met in my entire existence. And that's not an exaggeration. He was a monster. And I walked in on him with a kid. I won't say what they were doing because I don't want to get your channel banned. But just by saying that, you can probably imagine. And I pulled a gun and I was going to shoot him. Or Alex was going to shoot him. And Alex's handler, who is a significant part of a lot of these memories, stopped him from doing this. And then he was sent back to the cage for several days while it was discussed, okay, what are we going to do with this kid? And
How old were you when this happened? When you walked in on him? What do you think?
I don't honestly know. I
So
had been I had my age adjusted and messed with so many times, and I had been on so many different like missions of varying lengths and then come back.
so these missions were not just like a couple of weeks. Some of them could have been decades.
Oh yeah.
And they would have to re-age you over and over back to, I guess they wanted you to be a 7 or 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And why did they always wanted to keep you being that age? Why didn't they just let you just, I don't know, maybe a mid-20s?
Because that age is when psychic abilities are the strongest. For one thing, and for another thing, for abuse purposes. because they liked people. You can finish that sentence.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember any SRA kind of rituals, um, bloodletting, or anything like that? I mean, if you don't want to talk about it, that's perfectly fine. We can move on.
Not at Montauk, no. They were more high tech. They weren't any nicer, but they were more high tech in their methods. In uh, in another project that I am aware of that I don't think I'm really supposed to talk about, but yes, definitely there were things like that.
Did you did they ever do did Gloria Vanderbilt ever do a ritual on you?
Not that I can recall.
All right, just as well, but you don't have to go through that. All right, so okay, so you almost killed Preston, and they put you. I guess they said you put you back in the cage, right?
Yeah.
Punched you. Okay. So at what point did they? How did they rehabilitate you? Put you back? What did they do next?
Um. Well, eventually, after
John. Oh. Wow. Well, it looks like we lost John, but you know what? We certainly went into. Looks like we got most of our questions in about Montauk. While we wait for John to get back, we wanted to mention a little bit about. Let's see here. Let's take care of this. And okay, how about we go through some questions? Maybe I can answer. Let's see here. I've got some information on Nicholas Cruz. That was the shooter at the high school, and I think it was at Parkland, right? That was down Miami. Supposedly that. Okay, John's back.
yes,
Hey, John. Since somebody asked the question, Are you okay?
yes,
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question real quick. So, when I had Peter the Insider come on the show, according to his intel, Nicholas was was being shot up with cortexiphen, and that high school, I think that district, the police chief was best friends with Hillary Clinton, so there was a lot of connections with Monarch experimentations at that high school, and they were shooting the kid up. And he was a super soldier, and he shapeshifted into some kind of creature. I think he said he had like a lion head, but he was wearing a helmet, and he went around the school, and weapons popped out of his own body. So it was like the programmable matter. That's why, yeah, we're hearing you, John. But that's why they wanted to confiscate. The MIB went in there to confiscate all the cameras because they can't let people know that that he didn't. According to Peter Insider, he didn't even bring a weapon onto campus. It came out of his own body. So thank you, Barbara, for that question. John, you there?
yes. I'm here. I've probably I don't have much longer. My family is going to be here soon, but
I see. Okay, so
I can answer a few more questions.
yeah. All right, we'll bring you back on to talk about the Looking Glass later. Then, how's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay, so how much time do you think we have?
10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, so all right, we'll go through some questions now. So somebody's asking, is Montauk totally closed now? What do you think? What, according to Nancy?
No, it is definitely not. Well, okay, Camp Hero is no longer where it's at. It's now in New Orleans, underneath an abandoned naval base. You can look this place up. It's at 4400 Dauphine Street. But no, the project itself is ongoing. And by the way, it is not and never was called the Montauk Project. It's called Project Phoenix. Yeah, that place.
The Edward Herbert Defense Company. What are we looking at here? What is this?
That's the base that is now or it has a dome under it, I guess. I should clarify. That is now being used. The chair is there and everything, and people
Wow.
are, yeah.
Fire. There's fires here. Okay, so go to, wow, this is it right here.
Mm-hmm.
This abandoned Navy base. So, can you explain a little bit about this? Because some are saying that the Project Phoenix, whatever you want to call it, is actually there was a it's like in a pocket reality outside of time.
Yeah, it's not a pocket reality. It's in a time bubble or a time freezing zone, if you want to be really specific about it. It's a similar thing, but not quite the same.
So that's why the kids that were originally taken back in the 1960s are in this time freezing zone. So maybe the technology still kind of looks very much like the 60s because that's,
Yeah.
and they're re-aging the kids. So everybody's kind of staying the same age.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So some of them, like some experiencers are describing seeing reptilians and jeeps driving around around Camp Hero on the surface area and looking for children to EAT. That they are looking for that were being disobedient, whatever they thought. So this probably never really took place in our reality. It was in this pocket, or what do you say, bubble?
Probably, if I had to hazard a, I would say you're probably right. Yeah.
Okay. And can you also comment under Project Rainbow or Project Phoenix? How many of these projects are there around the world? Because it's not just under Camp Hero and this bubble, or now you say New Orleans, but where? How many do you think there are?
A lot. I know China and Russia each have one. Hungary, of all places, did have one, but I believe it was actually shut down in the 90s. Let's see, where else?
How about under Brookhaven Labs?
Quite possibly.
Yeah, there's rumors that the program got extended out, and I think that's where I was connected to, according to some of the work that I did with Jimmy Payne, who worked at Montauk. Okay, and so there seems to be another project going underneath the South Portal Canyon, just north of Los Angeles, deep underground. That area, there's a program. Yeah, there's one also underneath the Hilton Hotel in Waikiki Beach. It seems like the Hilton hotels are connected with this. I don't know, John. I don't know if you had any aware of that.
I know a little about that. That a lot of them have like elevator jump gates. And another one that no one has really talked about that also has a lot of jump gates in their offices is the video game company Square Enix. There's the very famous one that they have at 999 Sepulveda near LAX. But they have ones in their other offices too, in Tokyo and in I think it's in either Toronto or Montreal, in their Canadian headquarters. There's also a huge facility underneath Seattle that you access it via the Needle building. If you type in a code into the elevator, it goes down instead of up. And yeah, there's a lot of these around the country and the world, and also on other planets even.
Wow. So okay, lots of great questions here. I guess we're still, well, we got 10 minutes now, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. How Nicole is actually oh wait, that's not. I guess you answered that, but I was hoping maybe more specifically, what can you advise people that were in these projects that were mind wiped? What can they do to help recover their memories? Anything? Any advice?
First of all, ask yourself if you really want them. And if you decide you do, then okay, first of all, you need to make friends who can be there with you. Make friends I guess, within the SSP community who will be able to support you through this process. Do not go through it alone, because I went through it alone and it literally almost killed me. And then, from what I've found, I never underwent any of this, but it seems that regression hypnosis is the most accurate and safe way of doing it.
Okay. All right. Can you explain to people what they actually do to erase the memories? What do you know about it?
From what I can remember, it's being put into like an MRI looking type of machine. And you also have something on your head like a helmet, and it treats your brain like a computer, and it's literally like as if it's erasing data from a computer.
Wow. Sort of like the neural. Did they have like a neuralizer that you see in the Men in Black, where you hold a little rod in front of somebody and flashes them?
Nothing that small, no. But
Okay.
there were things that could be put in, like in sunglasses and stuff. And it's not like where you wear sunglasses like in that movie to protect yourself. You actually give the sunglasses to the person whose mind you want to wipe, and then it will do that. But it's not that reliable, and it's not 100% successful. So,
do you have any ideas on how this technology work? How are they able to take away the memories? And are they actually taken away? Or are they just another little pocket in the astral body?
They're just in another pocket, because if you do enough work, then eventually they're going to come back at least a little bit. So,
and that's where this 13 cube is coming into place, right?
Yep.
And why do you call it the 13 cube?
Because that's how many were made. It's treated like a data array in a computer. Each altar being a. I'm not a tech person, okay? I believe the term would be a file in that data array. And gosh. And they would make a 13 by 13 by 13 by 13 cubic array, which is 2,197 altars.
Wow.
And I am really sorry, my family just got here.
All right. Well, John, why don't you go ahead and say your goodbyes?
Yes. Thank you. Thanks for having me, James. If any of what I'm saying sounds familiar, or if I sound familiar to you, maybe, you can find me on Facebook or in the by the email address James has for me down in the description. Thanks for having me. I look forward to being back.
All right. Maybe next time maybe we can ask audience members to donate some money to my nonprofit, and we can give your parents a nice gift certificate to a restaurant. And there he goes. Okay, we can have more time. Maybe. Sorry. John is a very young guy. His family is not at all accepting. So out of respect of him, we were trying to work around that. But as you can see, the amount of memories that John has makes me believe that he is more legitimate than at least some of these other people that have come on here. Even though he's young and doesn't want to show his face, I think that that just gives us a little bit more validity, and it actually confirms a lot with what some of the other experiencers are saying. So let's see, maybe I can try to answer a few questions here. Let's see here. The T-Rats that hate our guts. I would say that there might be an aspect of black goo infected certain reptilians that are like that, but that the negative AI overtakes the heart chakra. So there are some benevolent Dracos out there, 5%. They're not many, but and there are many more benevolent reptilians. But I think it's when this AI takes over, it kind of it changes their whole concept of life there. But all right, let's see if I can answer some more questions. Marina is asking, what is going to take for these crimes to end? Who is helping with this? Let's see here. I think Jimmy Payne, he's described in the future a lot of these programs they're going to backfire. So yeah, the people involved are going to die. A lot of people are going to die. So I think it's going to be a good end of the story, I guess you can say, for us anyway. All right, let's move on here. So we've got which shadow military was being used. That particular group, let's see here, would have been based out of the Brookhaven Labs, was involved, certain military contractors. But yeah, maybe we should get Jimmy Payne to answer that one. All right, and we've got is Montauk connected to Umbrella? I would say it's more connected to the Shaw house. Heather Shaw's sister was my handler at Montauk. And I was particularly chosen because I was on a mission. I tried to kill Heather Shaw, who is the goddess. Her soul is the goddess of the underworld, Arishagal. So as a super soldier, I took her out, but apparently she didn't die, and she had a vendetta against me. So she had her sister recruit me. So I would say the Shaw House is pretty much responsible for most of the trafficking on this planet, and they are also subcontracting with Umbrella. So that would be probably my guess, the connection there. All right. Someone is asking, let's see here. Lots of good questions. Project Phoenix. The original Project Phoenix I think it was Project Phoenix Rainbow. That was where they were doing experiments with the USS Eldridge. Jimmy Payne has come on here and explained about that one. And under that was all the other experiments, which is what we know as Montauk projects and many more. Okay, let's see here. All right, well, lots of good questions, comments. We said here, ask John if he knows about the 60th parallel. Unfortunately, wish we could ask him, but let's see here. Ask him. Let's see here. Someone's asking about India. I would say every nation that is connected with NATO, it has access to these programs. Let's see here more. Okay, there's so much here. I think we're just going to have to call it because I can't. Guys, thank you so much. Let's see here. I have got a few more. I think John was. If you go watch the interview that he did with Daniel Sala, John mentioned that he went to the year 2700 to London. I think he said that most of London, I guess all of London was underwater. Actually, there were many parts of the world that were underwater, including Florida. And so everything is still going to exist. We're still going to be moving on. And but anyway, I guess we can go more into the project. We'll let him talk about it. So, all right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and close this up. So thank you all for coming on here. May you all have a wonderful day. And yeah, we'll all see you later. Go visit my website, supersoldiertalk.com, to learn more about if you do a search for John Whitberg on my website, you can find some of the articles that he's written. I posted on there, and you can get a copy of my book at neologicaltech.com. Get yourself a meditation cube to help you relax. And my nonprofit is Healing Soul Survivors. If you feel like you want to make a donation, well, there you all have it. I will all see you all later. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you, and may you have a wonderful day. See ya. Bye. Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.